Already made a video why, as a conservative in the state of Pennsylvania, I don't support Dr. Oz for the Senate. But I want to make sure people understand who Dr. Oz is. And this comes from a YouTube channel called The Real Dr. Muhammad Oz. And I think people should check out this channel and to see why, if you're a conservative or even a person with common decency, you probably should not support Dr. Oz for any political office in this country. So let's start with this. This is the number one. Another thing is, he didn't serve in the United States military. He served in the Turkish military. Turkey is now sided with Russia against the United States, as far as I know. I don't think that's a good thing. But let's go on. This is Dr. Oz actually sent people to a school, okay, sends team to a middle school and asks children to find the clitoris. Okay? This is the kind of person Dr. Oz is. Don't worry, it gets worse after this.
If you think you already know everything you need to know about sex, I can tell you something, you probably don't. And to prove how little adults actually know about sex, I sent 2 members of Core Team Oz to pop quiz the young and the not so young. You will not believe the results. Take a look. Armed with diagrams and questions, I sent Principal L to a local middle school and urologist Dr. Harry Fish to Times Square to find out whether adults are smarter than an 8th grader when it comes to sex. I'm Principal L, and I came to you today to talk about sex. So are you ready? Yeah! I'm going to ask you a question. True or false? The pill is over 95% effective.
That's false.
True or false? The pill is over 95% effective.
True.
Can a woman get pregnant while menstruating?
Yeah. I would say no. I was told that they can, but it hasn't happened to me.
What does the vas deferens do? The vas deferens? The vas deferens.
Something with muscles. Sperm travels through them.
What do the ovaries do? I'll ask you first.
It makes me happy.
What do the ovaries do?
The ovaries release eggs and produce estrogen.
Can you point out where the clitoris is? Well, that was right up in there, I guess.
There?
It's, not the clitoris. That's the anus.
Oh.
Who's willing to come up and point out the clitoris? Come on up, son. Where's the clitoris? Point out the clitoris. Come on up, son. Where's the clitoris? Point out the clitoris. Come on up, son. Where's the... Point out the clitoris. Come on up, son. Where's the clitoris?
Here's the clitoris.
Excellent. Where's the clitoris?
Here's the clitoris.
Where's the clitoris?
Here's the clitoris.
Where's the clitoris?
Here's the clitoris.
Excellent job.
What is the function of the prostate?
It has something to do with the urinary tract.
Now, if you're a Republican in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I want you to ask yourself, would you support a candidate that dresses as a woman? Because Dr. Oz did that as well.
The TV doctor dressed as a woman and went undercover to work in a shoe department, trying to convince shoppers to choose comfort over fashion.
Michael, you might want to try these as well.
What? That's the creepiest thing I've ever seen. It was the weirdest look ever. He looks like the V for Vendetta mask.
Now, again, if you're a Republican in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, would you support a candidate that supported childhood transgenderism? Because Dr. Oz did that as well.
Told you, he was meant to be a she.
She always knew that she is a girl.
Would you let your child become the opposite sex?
Talk to me about why you decided to have a double mastectomy at age 14.
Inside the lives of transgender kids.
This show is going to be controversial for a lot of people, challenging your beliefs about what it means to be male or female. The word you'll hear today is transgender. Transgender. It describes people whose sex on the outside doesn't match who they are on the inside. Now imagine your child is transgender. What would you do? In other words, it's a girl or it's a boy.
I want people to understand, this guy's allegedly a doctor, right? He's allegedly a doctor. well, he is a doctor. He's, I believe, a cardiac surgeon or something like that. He's a cardiologist, if I remember correctly. But this is a person that is a medical doctor that doesn't know what biological gender is, in a way, and is claiming that people, if you're a Republican, if you don't believe in biological gender, I really don't know what to say. But you have to understand that this person is saying that, you know, somebody's gender on the inside doesn't match their gender on the outside. A medical professional, in my opinion, my personal opinion, should refer to that as gender dysphoria, which is a mental issue in which the person's mind is not meshing with reality as reality is. Okay? And that's a big problem for me as a conservative. Okay? I don't think, now, like I said, I am not against people being transgendered. If people want to be transgendered, let them be transgendered as long as they're adults. But that's not what Dr. Oz is supporting here. Dr. Oz is supporting and normalizing transgenderism in children and the use of, things to support transgenderism in children. And as a conservative Pennsylvanian, I am socially conservative, even though I'm a progressive. As a socially conservative person, I'm not okay with that. And if you're a socially conservative person, I would be shocked if you're okay with that. So let's see.
Now imagine your child is transgender. What would you do? Our lives as parents are first defined by the words, it's a girl or it's a boy. Could you make a decision to let your child live as the other sex, even alter their body? It's an area of intense debate. Today you'll meet families coping with this astonishing reality. What does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a girl? Those two simple questions are infinitely complex and gut-wrenching for parents of children who are born transgender.
I'm a girl, and I have a penis.
8-year-old Josie.
He's claiming that children are born transgendered. Okay? Now, if you think that's a reality, I mean, that's your choice to believe whatever you believe. But in my opinion, I don't think that operating on somebody that identifies as the opposite gender makes any more sense than giving an anorexic or a bulimic liposuction. And that's just my opinion, but let's move on.
He was born Joseph. Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Her sex on the outside didn't match how she felt on the inside. And that's how every...
This is the guy running as a Republican. Let's hear what he has to say again and ask yourself, do you agree with this?
Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Physically, she's a boy. But from the time she could talk, Josie knew she was a girl. Her sex on the outside didn't match how she felt on the inside. And that's how every transgender child feels. Children like Josie may start showing signs of transgender as early as 2 or 3. This extraordinary condition is not as rare as you might think. It's estimated that 3 million Americans believe they were born the wrong sex. Transgender shakes up all of our ideas about what makes us male or female. Does gender come from our anatomy or from our thoughts and feelings? While science looks for answers, what are parents of transgender children to do? More and more parents, like Josie's, are allowing their children to live as the opposite sex. In some cases, they're going as far as providing hormone blockers to prevent the onset of puberty, to buy their children more time to figure out the next step. Others heed the warning of psychiatrists who caution that children who may be transgender don't always grow up to be transgender adults.
Exactly.
Others heed the warning of psychiatrists who caution that children who may be transgender don't always grow up to be transgender adults.
What's very important to understand here is a child is not transgendered. Okay? I mean, seriously, if you think that a child is transgendered, children are naturally confused, and that's why they need parents to set examples and strong gender roles so that the children understand what proper gender roles are. But, whatever. This is just all kinds of crazy, but let's move on.
Others heed the warning of psychiatrists who caution that children who may be transgender don't always grow up to be transgender adults. There's no easy answer. With science and psychology only starting to explore this complex subject, what's the
At least he separated science from psychology. I got to give him props on that one.
right way to nurture a transgender child? Let's meet a family living with that very question every day. Vanessa's here with her daughter, Josie. Welcome to the show. Vanessa, your husband, Joseph's in the military. He's not able to join us today.
Correct.
Early on, you probably had a sense that Josie was different. And when did you recognize that Josie was transgender?
It was during a regular well baby exam. The pediatrician was looking at her. He got really quiet and just sort of watched her for a while. And he brought up a term, gender identity disorder. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, what's that? He said,
They're being led by the pediatrician. Wouldn't you think to get, a second opinion from a more competent pediatrician? Let's see this again.
The pediatrician was looking at her. He got really quiet and just sort of watched her for a while. And he brought up a term, gender identity disorder. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, what's that? He said, like transgender. I was like, could you spell that for me? I had no idea what he was saying.
That's when you learned about it.
That is.
How are you, Josie?
Good.
She has a lot of spark to her, I gotta say.
She does indeed.
Do you remember when your parents thought you were a boy?
A little bit.
Talk to me about that a little.
Listen to that again.
Do you remember when your parents thought you were a boy? Do you remember?
This is Dr. Oz reinforcing in this boy that he is a girl. This is the person that people are going to be voting for as the Republican candidate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for the U.S. Senate.
Do you remember when your parents thought you were a boy?
A little bit.
Talk to me about that a little bit. What do you remember?
Like, how did it make you feel when I used to take you and get your hair cut off at the barbershop on base?
It made me very angry.
Mm-hmm. You did not like your haircut. Why not?
Because I'm a girl, not a boy.
Yeah.
How do you do the basic thing?
Now, what's hilarious about that is they're assuming that all girls must have long hair. If anything, they're reinforcing gender, what do you call it? False gender norms. Not all women have long hair. Some women have hair above the shoulder. Some women shave their head. Okay, so you're reinforcing gender stereotypes there, but I suppose that's okay because, the child is trans.
How do you decide how to dress Josie? How do you decide how to talk to people about what's going on?
Right. Yeah, those are great questions, and they were really big struggles for us. I had no idea. Here I am trying to put her into, the little G.I. Joe outfits to go to school like all the other little boys on base, and she was fighting me and crying and having fits and demanding that she wear the pink leggings and the denim little skirts that she wanted to wear when we'd go to the stores. She'd go to that, gravitate towards the girls section.
Jesus Christ, can you imagine being this kid's father living on a military base? Holy Christ.
And not the little boys section that I wanted to put on her. And here on Typha, on their website, there are other parents allowing their children to that gravitate towards the girls section, not the little boys section that I wanted to put on her. That gravitate towards the girls section, not the little boys section that I wanted to put on.
Not the little boys section that I wanted to put on her. Remember, this is a biological boy. This child's gender is being falsely reinforced as the opposing gender by by two doctors, a pediatrician and now a cardiologist, and his mother, who is clearly batshit.
And here on TIFA, on their website, there are other parents allowing their children to do this, allowing their children to match the outside of their body to be congruent to who they are inside. It was a new concept to me.
Well, thank you very much.
I identify as a noble phoenix.
Dr. Robert Garofalo is joining us today. He's an expert in this area. He's a pediatrician at Howard Brown Health Center and Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. Treats a lot of transgender kids and teens. So this story is not foreign to you. You deal with it in your practice all the time. What I would like to have everyone really understand crisply is the difference between transgender, which I guess the criteria is and a term that was used, and Vanessa used it herself, as gender identity disorder. Just explain that for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some controversy in the community about whether to use the term disorder, first of all, because I think many people are more comfortable with the term condition, because as Josie put it, this is who she is. You know, she's a girl.
Is it a disorder or a condition? Is it a disorder or a condition? Well, Jesus Christ, is syphilis a disorder or a condition? It's like, what the fuck?
So the criteria become really important in terms of just making sure that, there is some discordance or discomfort with the gender that she was assigned at birth. That's probably the most important thing.
This individual was born a male human being. They were a male human being, okay? That's what they were born as at birth. They were not assigned this gender. This is not a social construct. This is a molecular reality born out in the chromosomes of this child. Just so we're clear on that. Just so we know what that means.
So just so I'm clear on this, and I think it'll help the audience as well. So it's not so much who you like, it's who you think you are.
Right. Sexual orientation is, like you said, who you're attracted to, whereas gender identity disorder is who these people are.
The second criteria is you don't like your gender, you don't like your genitalia, you don't like the clothes, you don't like doing the things that you normally would want to do if you were that gender.
Okay, if you don't like, this sounds like a severe case of body dysmorphic disorder or something of that nature. Listen to these symptoms. Listen to these symptoms.
The second criteria is you don't like your gender, you don't like your genitalia, you don't like the clothes, you don't like... The second criteria is you don't like your gender, you don't like your genitalia, you don't like the clothes, you don't like doing the things.
So this is what's funny. Okay, number one, clothes. I can understand clothes being a social construct, but this idea that you don't like your genitalia and you don't like your secondary sex characteristics, this sounds to me like body dysmorphic disorder to an extreme. To an extreme. But let's let these frickin' whack jobs continue here.
That you normally would want to do if you were that gender.
Yeah, and it can be pretty extreme. I've had a patient present who has sort of self-injured, has cut their penis.
You don't like the things that you would normally do if you were that gender. Okay, whatever.
Because they've been so uncomfortable with the anatomy that they were born with.
Let's hear this. This does not sound like a mental illness at all, right?
It can be pretty extreme. I've had a patient present who has sort of self-injured, has cut. It can be pretty extreme. I've had a patient present who has sort of self-injured, has cut their penis. Who has sort of self-injured, has cut their penis. Who has sort of self-injured, has cut their penis. Who has...
Let's hear this again, just so you know. This is perfectly normal, healthy behavior. This doesn't sound like self-harm or mutilation or, self-mutilation or cutting or anything like that, except it's exactly that. But clearly this person is clearly completely mentally stable, and the only answer is to lop off their sex organs.
Who has sort of self-injured, has cut their penis because they've been so uncomfortable with the anatomy that they were born with.
And the third criteria is the duration of the transgender feelings. And how do you know for sure that Josie's not just going through a phase?
Once we allowed her to express herself authentically, once we allowed her to live in her normal role without trying to...
What about kids that think they're horses or farm animals or God knows what else at recess and things like that? Should we allow them to be horses and whatever the hell else they, whatever kids think they are, dinosaurs and wolves and cowboys and Indians? And I mean, if they identify as it, well, actually, I guess there's nothing wrong with identifying as a cowboy. But I mean, Jesus Christ, where do you draw the line? Should people be able to identify as porpoises, or is the correct plural porpi?
Force her into a mold that didn't fit her. Then she just blossomed. She took 17 doses of medication a day, 14 different medications.
Now, I think I know what might be leading to some of the mental unwellness of this child. I'm not a doctor, remind you, I'm not a doctor, but this doesn't sound healthy to me.
She took 17 doses of medication a day, 14 different medications. She took 17 doses of medication a day, 14 different medications to try and get her. She took 17 doses of medication a day, 14 different medications to try.
You're going to put a small child on a powerful psychotropic medications and wonder why their mind isn't working properly? Really? Really? Okay.
Get her to fit into this mold for depression, anxiety, ADHD. She was, Tourette's went in there at the end. Just all kinds of things. Just to try and get her to fit in.
Listen to these symptoms.
To try and get her to fit into this mold for depression, anxiety, ADHD. She was, Tourette's went in there at the end. Just all kinds of things. Just to try and get her to fit into this. And, all of those medications went away. Every single one. She is on no medications now.
If you just take away medications, they'll go away. Okay? Does this person look mentally well? This person on stage, do they look mentally well? Ask yourself that. They're a boy behaving and acting and dressing like a girl. Are they mentally well now? Now, I am very much against putting somebody on 14 different medications that are altering their brain chemistry. How do you know those medications haven't disturbed that child's brain chemistry? How do you know those medications haven't corrupted that child's mind? How do you know that? I don't think you do. But I would consider putting a small child on 14 different medications to be child abuse also. Who is doing this? Who is allowing this to happen?
You see her, she can't stop smiling and giggling, and, she's just a happy...
Mania is not healthy.
Little girl that wasn't her.
Because the parents got to make a lot of decisions about their kids. Sometimes these decisions, especially if you've got a transgender child, become huge as they approach puberty. And so I'd love to understand a little bit more about how you think through this process. And by the way, doctors now can pause puberty, which is another point of controversy. So let me just show an animation so everyone understands what we're talking about. When you're a child growing up, you have hormones, and they're released from the hypothalamus, which is down here in the middle of the brain, and it stimulates the pituitary gland to release chemicals. Notice how it's rhythmic and it's pulsing, stimulating. Now, those hormones come down, and if it's a female child, they'll stimulate the ovaries down here and the uterus and other female organs, endocrine organs, to secrete hormones. But you can give a chemical that actually mimics what would happen is if this part of the brain was constantly releasing a high dose of that hormone, which actually inhibits the pituitary gland from doing what it normally does. And for that reason, you can actually hold back on what normally would happen as a child matures, and when the child therefore doesn't grow breast buds and develop hair at the right time, you can actually stall. You can delay the deep voice that a boy might get. Biological girls won't get the curvy hips, they won't get menstruation. Dr. Garofalo, this is a question that I'm sure your specialty struggles with all the time. How do you advise parents about whether to take this medication or not?
I think this is a really difficult decision, and my job as a pediatrician is to tell families what we know and what we don't know. But the reality is we don't necessarily know the long-term consequences of taking these medications. But the reality is we don't necessarily know the long-term consequences of taking these medications. But the reality is we don't necessarily know the long-term consequences of taking these medications. But the reality is we don't necessarily know the long-term consequences of taking these medications.
Thank you. Next steps for a transgender teen can be fairly dramatic. I want you to meet Isaac and his parents and see how they handled Isaac's decision to take control of his body.
I'm Isaac. I'm 15. I was born a girl, but I'm a boy. I was always a boy. Everyone always saw me as a boy, even strangers in the street. Oh, what a cute boy you have. And my mom would say, no, it's a girl. When I was little, I would ask my mom, can I have a penis? You know, can you make me one or can you buy me one?
Why is this girl asking their mother if they can have a penis? How does this girl even know what a penis is? I don't know what age this girl was, but why is a girl asking their mom if they can have a penis? And more importantly, depending on the age, I want to know how this girl even knew what a penis was. Considering that just doesn't seem normal to me. Like, honestly, unless they're being exposed to things they shouldn't be being exposed to.
When I was little, I would ask my mom, can I have a penis? You know, can I have a penis?
What?
You know, can you?
What?
Can I have a penis? You know, can you make me one or can you buy me one? And she's like, you can't buy that. In 6th grade, everybody knew I was different. I started growing breasts when I was 11. I felt like I was in the wrong. Everybody knew I was different.
Listen to this. This is a little boy talking, right? This is a boy talking.
I started growing breasts when I was 11. Everybody knew I was different. I started growing breasts when I was 11. Everybody knew I was different. I started growing breasts when I was 11. I felt like I was in the wrong body.
Your feelings are not facts.
11. I felt like I was in the wrong body.
Feelings aren't facts.
I felt like I was in the wrong body, that I didn't know how to react to all the changes that were happening to me or how I could still be myself. So when I started menstruating...
Again, this is a boy.
So when I started menstruating, it was a shock. So...
How many boys do you know that menstruate? I'm just throwing this out there. How many boys menstruate that you're aware of?
So when I started menstruating, it was a shock. So when I started menstruating, it was a shock.
If this person was using tampons, it could have resulted in toxic shock. Let's move on.
That made everything real. I'm a girl. Me and my mom both... That made everything real. I'm a girl.
So let's point this out. This person does recognize it made everything real.
That made everything real. I'm a girl. That made everything real. I'm a girl. Me and my mom both decided that I should go on hormone blockers.
Me and my mom. How the hell is anybody making decision? This is a responsible decision, people think? What the? Look at the dad's face. This dad looks pissed off. But let's go on.
That made everything real. I'm a girl. Me and my mom both decided that I should go on hormone blockers.
I knew that without treatment, he was going into depression.
Without treatment, he was going into depression. Okay, maybe you might want to take care of the depression. Maybe he might need to talk to somebody. Okay? Maybe that might be a little bit more interesting, maybe more beneficial than, I don't know, putting them on putting this girl on freaking dangerous hormones.
That without treatment, he was going into depression. I was really scared about suicide.
I wasn't getting the changes I wanted with the hormone blockers. They stopped my period, but I really wanted physical change. So I started on the testosterone.
Now, this is what's funny about this. Okay. So he wasn't getting, or she wasn't getting the results with the puberty blockers. So this individual wanted more aggressive changes, so they started taking testosterone. Now, what's funny, aging men there's a lot of controversy. When I go over Dr. Life and Dr. Life's age management medicine, I'm going to point out how it's so controversial that elderly men take testosterone to get their testosterone levels back to that of a healthy 20-something-year-old, but yet it's not controversial to pump a teenage girl full of testosterone so they can switch what gender they appear as. I mean, come on. It's not okay to use testosterone for age management medicine, but it's okay to completely destroy a young girl's body.
I wasn't getting the changes I wanted with the hormone blockers. They stopped my period, but I really wanted physical change, so I wasn't getting the changes I wanted with the hormone blockers. They stopped my period, but I really wanted physical change, so I started on the testosterone to start getting the facial hair and the deeper voice. Then I made the choice for my double mastectomy. In 7th grade.
In 7th grade. 7th grade. This person is not old enough to drink alcohol, to smoke cigarettes, to get into a bar, to get into some of the pool halls around me or bowling alleys around me after a certain hour, but yet they can make a life-altering decision such as a double mastectomy. They can make that decision as a youth. What's a 7th grader? Like, what, 13, 12? 12. They're 12 or 13 years old. So you have a 12 or 13-year-old making a freaking ridiculously crazy decision such as a double mastectomy at 12 or 13 years old. Really?
Grade.
Can't get a tattoo, but can get that kind of surgery.
It was a very easy decision for me. It was just like taking off 2 big tumors.
As soon as he wake up from...
So this person is referring to their natural anatomy as 2 big tumors, and nobody finds that at all odd?
It was just like taking off 2 big tumors.
Now imagine if somebody cut off their arm and was like, I was like removing a tumor. You'd think they were crazy, wouldn't you?
As soon as he wake up from the surgery, he asked me, is my chest flat? And I said yes. And the smile was up to here.
I feel like I am supposed to be this person. The double mastectomy and the hormones have helped, but I've always been me.
I am so proud of him. It's a privilege to be his mom.
What are you proud of? This is what drives me nuts with this. You ever see those bumper stickers with like, I'm proud of my autistic son, or I'm proud of my autistic daughter, or I'm proud of... be proud of your kid because it's something they've achieved. What has this person achieved? Nothing. This person hasn't achieved anything. Okay? You've basically just reinforced this person's own misconceptions about themselves and allowed them to make life-altering choices that they can't take back now. Okay, they can't take these choices back now, but yet they've made these choices very, very much in the juvenile stage of their development. Okay, remember when I did that video on the knockout game, people were saying that, the brain doesn't develop at an early age and blah, 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 blah. So we're not going to blame children for punching people in the head and killing them on the streets of Philadelphia. But in the same sense, the same people whose brains aren't developed enough to blame them for murdering somebody are somehow developed enough to decide on taking hormone treatments and getting life-altering surgeries? Really?
I am so proud of him. It's a privilege to be his mom.
Isaac and his parents are with us today. Thanks for joining the show. So I think parents love you dearly. It comes to me very clearly through that video, and I'm sure you sense that in your own life. You've made some very big decisions, but as a dad, as a surgeon, I know that when I get patients to sign consent forms, I have to have them be 18 years of age to do it by themselves. Do you have any thoughts in your mind about whether you could have coped for four more years? And by the way, I'm only asking this question because I think it's something that we're all struggling with as we hear your story.
Yeah. I feel that I have very...
Patients to sign consent forms, I have to have them be 18 years of age to do it by themselves. Patients to sign consent forms, I have to have them be 18 years of age to do it by themselves. Patients to sign consent forms, I have to have them be 18 years of age to do it by themselves. Do you have any thoughts in your mind about whether you could have coped for four more years? And by the way, I'm only asking this question because I think it's something that we're all struggling with as we hear your story.
Yeah. I feel that I have very supportive parents, and honestly, I do feel I could cope for 4 more years. I would have been very sad, and I don't think I would have had the same high school experience.
But could help me understand what you were feeling with this difficult decision about whether to allow to have this surgery.
I couldn't change the mind, but I could change the body. I wanted him to...
The mother is making the choice.
I couldn't change the mind, but I could change the body. I couldn't change the mind, but I could change the body. I wanted him to have in agreement everything, mind and body.
No, I understand. I mean, you can't change.
You can't do this through getting this child help. You have to get life-altering surgery and dangerous hormonal therapies that are going to change this person's life, most likely for the worse in the long run.
Change the mind, but you can change the body. I've never thought of it that way.
Yep.
Arturo, how has Isaac changed in your eyes? You can change the body. I've never thought of it that way.
This is Oz trying to normalize it with what he's saying.
You can change the body. I've never thought of it that way.
Yep.
You can change the body. I've never thought of it that way.
Yep.
Arturo, how has Isaac changed in your eyes?
After the surgery,
Yes.
he was more happy. When he come back from San Francisco, where the operation was,
San Francisco.
when he come back from San Francisco, where the operation was, he paint a big sun in his room. That makes it makes sense to me, the change that he's been through.
Dr. Garofalo, help us understand a little bit what the standards are. And I know this is cutting edge stuff, but at what age?
Cutting edge? Cutting edge. Like this is some great medical advancement that's going to save millions of lives. Okay.
Cutting edge stuff, but at what age? Cutting edge stuff, but at what age do most parents who want to make this decision to surgically change the gender of their child start to move?
He's admitting that parents are making the decision.
Do most parents who want to make this decision to surgically change the gender of
Most parents.
Do most parents who want to make this decision to do most parents who want to make this decision to surgically change the gender of their child start to move forward?
You know, there are some guidelines out there. The Pediatric Endocrine Society recently published some pretty good guidelines that talk about 16 as sort of the age of consent for making some of these decisions. But what you're hearing here is that this is truly like a family and a patient decision. Like if you were a parent sitting with a child and...
Think about that. Think about that.
It's truly like a family and a patient decision. Like if you... Truly like a family and a patient decision. Like if you... Truly like a family and a patient decision. Like if...
So if your family belonged to some crazy cult that allowed, I don't know, polygamous pedophilia or something like that, that should be against the law, I would think. So if families refuse to get their children vaccines, that's against the law in some areas. But if you want to permanently alter your child's sexuality and completely destroy their anatomy, put them on hormones that's going to change their mindset and all that, that's perfectly fine, apparently. It's a patient and a family decision. I don't really think that's okay, but let's move on.
You were a parent sitting with a child and you're worried about self-injury or harm or depression or suicide.
If you're worried about these things, shouldn't the child be getting help to deal with these things and not life-altering surgery?
Like if you were a parent sitting with a child and you're worried about self-injury or harm or depression or suicide. The child and you're worried about self-injury or harm or depression or suicide. The child and you're worried about self-injury or harm or depression or suicide.
Yeah, these things can be dealt with. And also, transgendered individuals have a very high rate of suicide anyway.
Would you wait, until someone became 14, 15, 16, 17 to make a decision to do something that in your heart and in your minds, is correct? And I think that's what these families are sort of doing.
I heard Monica say that you're worried about Isaac's life. Isaac, let me ask you this. If the law had prevented you from having surgery until you're 18, that was just the rule, and you couldn't change that, what would you have done?
I would have had a totally different experience. My life, the way I talk to others, and the way I wouldn't want to meet new people. I felt like I wasn't good enough to meet other people. Like I was trapped in my body, and I didn't know how to be myself. So it would have been a depressing high school.
Yeah, I can see that. Dr. Rafa, I'd just love to hear your advice for the folks out there watching who are transgender or their families.
The families that you have here are at one end of the spectrum, and these parents should be applauded for being truly amazing. But what I really focus on, or what I try to focus on with families and kids, are sort of core universal issues that are true for anyone's child development, which is self-esteem, mental health, safety. I mean, those are the things that are universal to making a child and a young person grow up healthy and happy. And that's what you should focus on.
And happy is the operative word. Dr. Rob Garofalo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Vanessa and Josie, thank you for being so cute and telling your story. Arturo, Monica, and Isaac, thank you again for coming forward and spending some time with us.
Thank you for being so cute. Okay, then. Now, Dr. Oz also was all for banning firearms, and I'm going to get into that in a second here, too. So, Dr. Oz did call for a New Zealand-style gun ban and said Americans should have less access to guns. That's true. So, he cast himself as pro-Second Amendment, okay? So it might be surprising GOP voters to see claims from his chief rival for the Republican nomination that say he's made numerous statements in support of gun control measures. Former hedge fund CEO Dave McCormick used a 15-second video ad on Facebook and Instagram to describe Oz, the physician and TV personality who is endorsed by former President Donald Trump. Mohammed Oz is anti-gun, the ad claims in the text that appears over a grainy black and white image of Oz while dramatic music plays and other claims flash across the screen. Oz called for a New Zealand-style gun ban, says one. Oz, Americans should have less access to guns. Did Oz really say these things? A review of the statements he has made on television, in social media posts, and in bylined columns show Oz for years promoted these and other ideas supported by advocates of gun control measures. His position on these matters appears to have changed. They've changed since he announced plans to run for public office. I guess he evolved on those issues. The Second Amendment section of Dr. Oz's website states, as a proud gun owner, there's a lot of Democrats that own guns that want to take them away from other people. I don't understand the point. The point is he is a liberal gun grabber, okay? And that's the truth. Now, I, for one, believe beyond a reasonable doubt that Joe Biden did win, okay? So I'm not at odds with that, but for those of you that are, Dr. Oz states that he would vote to confirm Joe Biden. I do agree with this, but what you have to understand, this is a man that is endorsed by former President Donald Trump. This is a man who is running for the kook Republican ticket, and he's telling these kook Republicans, yeah, he definitely would have voted to confirm Joe Biden. But let's see what he says.
Question for you. If if you were a sitting senator in Pennsylvania, would you have certified those votes for Joe Biden?
I think by the time the votes had gotten through the entire process, and remember, what ended up happening in my Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is that there was not a timely and effective adjudication of what went down. So now you're in this legal quandary. And the question as a Republican is, am I a law and order guy? And once the law was broken and a place was way before I'm supposed to decide, I didn't have a choice. And I would have voted to certify, to preserve our Constitution. We don't want to ever be...
So he's claiming that being a law and order guy, he would have confirmed him despite believing the law was broken. Look, the law wasn't broken. I'm not going to debate this with any of the kooks that think that Trump won. But the fact of the matter is, what he's saying doesn't make sense. It's his way of, straddling the fence here and playing both sides. It's horseshit. Now, I want to be very clear with this. I support universal medicine. 100% universal medicine. I support that. Obamacare is not universal medicine. Obamacare is, quite frankly, the opposite of universal medicine. It's saying they're going to make people pay for stuff and then not deliver it. I have a number of friends that have Obamacare because it's all they can get, and it doesn't cover very much. But it does cost an awful lot. So let's hear what Dr. Oz has to say on Obamacare.
The debate, where would you put the emphasis? Or if you could do one thing, I know this is sort of
I'll say globally, we have to make it easier to do the right thing in America. As an example, we spend a lot of effort right now figuring out how we're going to pay doctors and hospitals and how we're going to regulate insurance companies. But we also have to spend a little bit of effort trying to figure out why Americans buy some foods over others. Why is it so difficult for us to get the physical activity that we desire? And this starts, by the way, in our young years in school, and it progresses into our senior years. So as a society, we can look at different states and how they've accomplished. Let's take California. The incidence of cigarette smoking in California is about 14%. I actually chaired the president's last White House Council on Health there, so I know some of these numbers. In New York State, it's about 17%. Only 3%, but it's a big difference. And
significant.
In some southern states, it's 20% and more.
More of Oz on Obamacare.
Healthcare. Do you feel in America that everybody should get access to healthcare?
You have to have healthcare access in America. It's a criminal not to do that. I have been...
Now, I support access to healthcare, but Obamacare does not give access to healthcare. It forces people to pay for something that's not delivering.
Sued by an insurance company because I saved someone's life. Because they said if I hadn't done the operation, they would have died and they wouldn't have had to spend the money to keep them alive.
And how does that make you feel as a doctor?
It strips all your vitality away, because how can you possibly have to navigate that? If I didn't operate on that guy, as an example, he should have sued me. His family, his estate should have sued me because he was dying. I do, and I'm stuck. What if I have someone in front of me who doesn't have insurance, but who I can help? What would you do?
Yeah.
You have to be able to respond there. So I think
Now, I agree with this, and that's why I agree with absolutely getting rid of all insurance and having direct-to-consumer, from government-to-consumer health care like they do in Great Britain and like they do in other countries. I do not agree with how medicine is practiced in this country, but the fact of the matter is Obamacare was a handout to the insurance companies, not a handout to patients and not a handout to doctors. It ripped everybody off, and it was not universal health care.
Have to have coverage for everybody, but...
Dr. Oz calls China a great country for, baby care. Here we go.
The culture Dr. Wentz instilled in USANA, and it's very evident here in Beijing, China, where the USANA baby care facility rests. And I've had the honor of working with Dr. Wentz, looking at the technology he's developed, but also meticulously identifying which supplements people need more of. And I think that type of approach to life, looking at ways you can make people happier and alleviate suffering, that differentiates USANA from other endeavors. And I'm proud to be associated with USANA because I know they always put their customer first, which is exactly what I've always been taught to do with my patients in the operating room, because I'm a heart surgeon. It's what I do with my viewers on my TV show as well.